What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back doing another preview video. This one's going to be for the final week of the Autumn Nations. This one is going to be between Italy and Uruguay. This is going to be a really fun game. What we do in these preview videos is we chuck on a game of Rugby 20 in the background of the teams that are going to be playing, and then over the top we talk about the official teams announced, who we think is going to do well, who we think is going to do badly, and finally give a score prediction on what we think the real life game is going to come out as. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get into this game and get it kicked off. Alright, Jay Gruzman is going to get us kicked off and underway. We'll take it off to the right. We've got the wind coming back and us a tiny little bit in the background. So, Italy versus Uruguay. This was going to be probably the second most anticipated match for me in the Italy regime of this autumn internationals. The big one was going to be last week. Let's talk about Italy to start off with. Last week, Italy went on to play Argentina. And before that game, I was a little bit sort of believing that Italy would be able to maybe win that game. We haven't seen Italy win against a Tier 1 side in a good number of years, I would probably say. It's been a while. They're beating the Tier 2 teams pretty comfortably, but Tier 1 seems to be a real bit of a crux for them. I thought Italy against Argentina was going to be a really close game. Argentina not on top form, struggling a little bit. Italy moving up, getting some new players in. Benetton doing well in the club level games now. I thought maybe they'd be able to challenge that game. We went on to watch that game, and Argentina just dominated every area of that game. There were so many issues for Italy. The line out especially was all over the place. So they'll be really looking to try and bounce back a little bit against Uruguay, a team that I don't know a great deal about, but we saw them get their first win in the World Cup, which was really big news for them, but we'll get on to Uruguay a little bit later. So let's start off talking about Italy first. Yeah, that game against Argentina, not the outcome they would have wanted. They certainly got... they got over the try line. They got a few penalty kicks here and there. And Argentina definitely went for them. They went full on hardcore on them. They thought they were going to be in for a really sort of tight-knit game, and it just sort of ended up being a bit of an open game. So, how are Italy preparing to bounce back in this one? Well, let's check out the team. So, starting off in this front row, Fischetti, Bigi, and Nemeth. So already you can see the improvement here. They sort of dialed down their front row a little bit, I think, last week against Argentina. Maybe they thought they were going to hang on for a slightly longer game, as we see my attempt at a crossfield kick in the background there. But unfortunately, it didn't work that way for them. The Argentinian scrum is massive, and the Italy scrum and maul is no longer the sort of powerhouse that it used to be. They're definitely trying to integrate some of those backs a little bit more now, which is a bit of a shame for them. So their scrum not really holding up very well. In terms of the lock department, Marco Fusa and Federico Ruzza. So, I mean, they'll be working on that line out very, very hard. I don't believe Uruguay are quite as competitive in terms of set pieces at lineouts and scrums as Argentina. Argentina very much a tier 1 side compared to Uruguay, but they'll be wanting to have that lineout work a little bit better, at least getting the ball to hand. There were so many overthrows and underthrows in that Argentina game. They'll be looking for big replacements there and some people to step up. And then in that back three, Negri, Lamaro, and Bram Steen. So, what are we thinking of this 1-8? It's definitely a stronger 1-8. I did wonder whether they might try and test out their depth a little bit against a team like Uruguay. It seems to be a good team. It seems to be a bit of a power team. So I assume what we're going to see here is probably a good few minutes of trying to work through the forwards a little bit. But what I'm seeing here is there's a lot of ball carriers as forwards. They haven't gone down just the powerhouse route. They haven't gone down really the jackling route necessarily. I'm seeing a lot of big ball carriers here. So I'm assuming the forwards are going to be carrying to the line an awful lot in this game just to try and weaken down some of this Uruguayan defence. And then they'll move on to hopefully launching the backs, maybe in that second half, maybe end of the first half, depending on how tired Uruguay get. In terms of the backs, start off with the halfback partnership as we do. Callum Brayley and Paolo Garbisi. Garbisi still one of the few names of that Italian team that seems to turn up to every game. He must be getting a little bit annoyed that he seems to be the only one. He's getting good kicks, getting them into the corner. He's kicking for posts when you need him to, but there's no point kicking to that 5 metre line if your line out can't work and your maul can't get set up. So he's going to be a little bit annoyed about that. Callum Brayley coming in. I do like Callum Brayley. He's not necessarily as aggressive as some of the other scrum halves they have in Italy, but the passing percentage I would probably say is better. One thing I did notice last week is there was a couple of issues with passing, just not going quite to hand or throwing it at people's feet, throwing them at near knees and stuff. We saw I think there was one pass that even got thrown into touch, so they'll be hopefully looking to improve on that. In the centre partnership, Ignacio Brex and Maurici, who had a good game. Actually, looking forward to see a bit more from Maurici. Brex definitely working that defensive well. That attack line against Argentina, we saw him taking it to the line a good few times, but we would like to see just a bit more ball carrying. I just want to see Italy open up a little bit. They seem to get in their own heads a little bit. If they can't make tries and headway through the forwards, they seem to just sort of chuck it to the backs and hope something works rather than using set plays. I really want to see more set plays for them and use some different players. You know, watch a bit of footage from like an Ireland or a New Zealand and try and copy some of the moves they do. Try and integrate it a little bit more into their team. And then finally, as a back three, Monty Ioane, Pierre Bruno, who's not someone I know a great deal about, and finally Eduardo Padovani. So Padovani again playing good rugby. It's nice to see his name back in this Italian team now as pretty much a standard now we're beginning to see. I think overall as a 1 to 15, it's definitely strong. It's maybe not the strongest team, you could maybe argue. I still think it's very strong, actually. I think it's closer to their first string team than maybe a second string team. But it's very, very big, to be fair. I think this will be a good team to put on against Uruguay. I would be hoping a team like this would be looking to try and take over that first half a little bit. We've seen the aggression now. We saw it in the Italy-New Zealand game. They really went for it. We saw it in the Italy-Argentina game. They're going for it. They want those tries. They're going for the 5-metre mauls. The problem is they're just not able to cope with the pressure and the defence of some of the big teams. So teams like Uruguay, I think it's probably a good move to not take your foot off the gas. Don't look at other things. Keep doing what you're doing. Get those tries where you want to, boost that confidence, and then look maybe in the second half to integrate in some of those set plays that I was on about. We have moved on to the second half here in the background, so we'll quickly have a look through the substitutions. And a couple of different names in here. It's nice to see. They are testing a little bit more of a depth out. So starting off in the front row here, Fiver is going to come on as a replacement hooker. I don't know a lot about Fiver. Looking forward to see him. Traore, getting a name I don't feel I've seen in a long, long time in this Italian team. Nice to be seeing these other people come in. And then Casarelli is going to be coming in there as well. So, you know, again, so the switch up here for me is that starting front row I'm seeing ball carrying. This replacement front row I'm thinking much more is now based around power. So I assume what they're aiming to do is the first half just to tire people out. And then the second half you'll see the power boys come on, and that's where you'll begin to see penalties come from rucks, penalties coming from scrums if they can hold it out. I don't think it's a terrible move. The rest of the replacements forwards, David Sisi, and Giovanni Licata. Alessandro Fusco, I'm not sure if Fusco is a forward or a scrum half, maybe. The name doesn't ring a great deal of bells to me, so unfortunately can't talk a lot about that. I'm sure someone will drop down in the comments about how bad my knowledge of the Italian team is, but there's a couple of new names in there, which is nice to see. And then finally in those replacements back, Carlo Canna and Tavuyara. Again, there's a couple of names here that I'm not super familiar with. I think as soon as I say the names, they jump out to me as, oh yes, I've seen them play before, but I couldn't put a face to the name. But Carlo Canna, definitely going to be coming in there at some point, either coming on the inside centre or will take over as that fly half at some point. I don't think that's necessarily a bad move. Personally, I would quite like to see maybe put him on at 12 and have Garbisi and Canna play together. We did to consider right at the start of the autumn series whether this was going to be a bit of a partnership we were going to get to see more often. Unfortunately, we haven't seen it quite as much as I would have wanted to. So hopefully they get to put them on together and play together. But it'll be a tough game for them, but we'll hopefully see Italy be able to triumph there somehow along the way. Talking of which, let's talk about the opponents, Uruguay. We are coming towards the end of the game here. I'll have to go through Uruguay quite quickly. Not having the best autumn tour, to be fair, so far. They lost against Romania, which was a bit of a shame for them, so they'll be hopefully managing to move on. I think they did win against the USA at one point. Now, the Uruguay team is not a team I know about almost at all, unfortunately. I sort of seen a couple of the games. We saw the game they did where they beat Fiji in the World Cup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just be checking on the screen for you guys here. There'll be the forwards. We'll go through the backs and we'll go through the subs as well. But unfortunately, there's going to be very, very few names I could talk about here in this Uruguay team. It's not something we get to catch a lot of in the UK. Sorry, it's Uruguay games, which is a shame. I would like to see more Tier 2 rugby. So if we have any Uruguayan subscribers, I think that's maybe unlikely, but it'd be great if we did. Feel free to drop it down in the comment section, because I would certainly like to know a little bit more. This will be a game I'll be having to pay quite a lot of attention to over the weekend, just to try and boost my own knowledge a little bit about this. So in terms of score prediction, Italy versus Uruguay, for me I'm going to be leaning towards Italy. Italy, although they're not really contending against the Tier 1 nations, they are still looking like they dominate a lot of the Tier 2 nations. A game I really want to see is Italy versus Fiji, because I think that'll be an interesting, tight-knit game. Uruguay not on top form necessarily, losing to teams like Romania as well. So I'm going to call Italy to win, and I'm going to call Italy to win by 25, I think is going to be my call. I'm not sure if that's mean or maybe too generous. I could go either way. So sorry for not a great deal of information about the Uruguay team, guys, but hopefully you all enjoyed this video. And if you did, make sure to drop it a like. And if you want to keep up to date with all of these preview videos we will be doing for all of week 4, make sure you subscribe to the channel just to keep up to date when they come out. And make sure you drop down in the comments who you think will win and what you think the score prediction will be, because I really enjoy reading through the comments and seeing what other people think. But I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.